Hi, and welcome to Live Laugh Stuck. We're back again to actually talk about Act 1 instead of just talk about how we're going to talk about Act 1 and eventually the rest of Homestuck. We started taking notes and that was great. I stopped taking notes on about page 30 because a lot happened. Like there's a lot of little tidbits. You also took notes. Isn't that right? You know what? Go ahead and introduce yourself in case you didn't listen to the intro.
Hello, I am Moosey. I was vaguely aware of Homestuck when it was a thing, like a modern, like current times thing. But I never got into it, but I've always been curious about it. But yeah, so I read a little bit of it before, only a few acts. And so we're just rereading it now.
Yeah. And I saw some of your notes and what is relevant to especially this act, but really all of Homestuck is your profession.
The profession?
Yeah, your profession. Yeah,
because my profession. Oh, I was like
your profession.
I was like, I didn't write down kids' professions. What? Do I need this information?
Yes, they all have these jobs.
Yeah, because I've been taking notes almost as if I'm playing D&D, because when I play D&D, it's like I'm gonna like literally write down everything that the DM says, because this might come in handy later to solve things. So I even have like what their starting data structure for the inventory was written down, and then John's dad likes Harlequin, but Rose's mom likes wizards, and it's like, okay, what is Sunglasses Man's brother? I guess likes clowns. I think that's kind of vaguely what I remember.
We'll find out what Glasses Man's brother likes. So we were going to read the synopsis. I found it on rafe.name, Rafe. Might be Rafe. But yeah, there's I'm probably going to use this website a lot because there's how many pages, how many words there are, and since Act 1 is short enough, I figure we'll just read through the synopsis to try to remember what was going on. I'm gonna read there's two halves. I'll read the John portion and then you can read the Esper portion. Okay. Homestuck begins as a story of four friends who live far apart and have never met. We are introduced to these kids one by one, starting with John Egbert. It is John's 13th birthday, and he wants to play a game with his online friends. He has been waiting for the game to arrive in the mail for days. After fussing with a gift from his baking-crazed dad and enduring the pesterings of his friends, John leaves his room to check the mailbox. Seeing that Dad has already brought in the mail, John confronts him in the kitchen. They have a messy battle with hammers and cakes and pies. John ends this strife with a distraction and makes off with his mail. There are two parcels addressed to himself. The first, a gift from his friend Dave, contains the plush bunny prop from the set of Con Air. The second contains the beta release of the computer game Esperb. John and his friend Rose are eager to play Esperb, which some people say Spurb. I think sometimes it's Spurb.
That's what I was wondering.
No, it's if someone tells you how to pronounce something in Homestuck, they're wrong. They're always wrong. Hussey has admitted to changing the way they pronounce words throughout the thing, and they're the ones who made the fucking words up.
I've done that with my own video games and being like, I guess it's pronounced Lynxion. I just made this word when I was like 16.
Yeah. So Spurb, Esperb, whatever you want to call it. John and his friend Rose are eager to play Spurb and find out what it is about. Two other parcels for John remain out of reach, locked in Dad's car.
Yes. And then with the Sburb or Spurb parcels, John starts a game of Spurb with Rose. As John's server player, Rose assumes control of his environment. Experimenting with the controls on her end, Rose discovers that she can extend to John's house, move furniture around, and place machinery that supports a kind of alchemy based on punch cards. The alchemy equipment emits a confusing ball of light called the Kernel Sprite. The sprite is quote-unquote prototyped when it absorbs John's maimed Harlequin doll and takes on the appearance of a one-eyed, one-armed jester. The mission to alchemize their first item becomes urgent when John discovers a meteor is about to hit his house. After a series of frustrations brought on by Rose's spotty internet connection, they succeed in creating a tree that bears a blue apple. John has only enough time to take a bite of the apple before the meteor strikes Earth and makes a crater where his house stood a moment before.
It's funny how short the act is whenever you get rid of all the shenanigans.
Yeah. The wandering around.
The wandering around, and then you put something in your inventory, and then it gets ejected.
Yeah. And so go get the PDA. It's in the yard now.
Again, it's in the yard again.
I didn't realize that he hadn't met his friends. Like, I didn't realize they were online friends, which
Oh, yeah.
makes me kind of nostalgic.
Yeah.
As there's definitely a point in my life where most of my friends were just online friends.
Yeah. It's extremely 2009 nostalgia of just like having all your friends in extremely separate places.
I will say, one of my online friends, I just remembered this now, is he sent me a bunch of like pirated copies of Excel Saga on VHS.
Oh my God. Fantastic.
Yeah.
So in this one, we're giving hints at where John and Rose live, and it's never explicitly stated in the comic, I don't think. But John lives in Washington, and Rose lives in New York.
Yeah, it's hard to tell from the the art or anything.
Yeah, but like I guess there is actually a house in Washington that is John's house.
Okay.
I don't know. I never like looked into how people figure this out, but like sometimes people go by and like take a picture in front of it. I think maybe at one point the coordinates are posted in the comic. I just never looked up GPS coordinates for anything, but you know, Homestuck fans are intense.
Yeah.
So those are the two that we sort of know in the comic so far. So yeah, literally across the country from each other.
Yeah. And I vaguely remember seeing Sunglasses Man and Glasses Girl. But I thought they would be in Act 1, but I forgot like how much it was just that first part of playing the game and stuff.
Yeah, it's like, hey, they're fucking around, and then at the end, oh, there's stakes to this.
Now, I wanted to talk about the app a little bit, the unofficial Homestuck collection.
Yeah.
Just like to say that I'm really impressed by it. So it's an Electron app, which means you basically kind of, I don't use it myself, but you use it to make like a web thing, and then you can also deploy it for different platforms. And it runs in Linux. I'm in Linux. It's not even just a reader. It like unlocks things as you go through. So there's some logic in there as well. So it's not just like as bare minimum as whatever was it Viz or something did with it. It's like, yeah, I've discovered Homestuck fans are pretty intense.
Yeah, no, they're very intense. Yeah, Viz literally just like turned the flashes into YouTube videos.
Yeah.
Which is bad, and a lot of things broke, and like there eventually is some like flash in the actual text which gets broken, and it's a mess. So I'm really glad we have this. I wanted to ask what all settings or mods or anything you added on.
I did not add anything in just because I'm still pretty new to this application.
For sure.
Yeah, I just have it set on the replay mode and not archival.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, then the basics are the same. I have a couple other things added on. One thing I like is there's one that adds the Bandcamp link to the music whenever it shows up. This will be helpful for me because I recognize the music by tune, but I can never like everyone's like Suburban Jungle or whatever is the best, and I'm like, I don't know what that is.
Yeah,
but maybe I'll start remembering it. Speaking of the music, I also have the news posts on that will automatically update as I go through, as though I was like reading it when it was coming out. And there was a post is like, some of you guys have wondered how to access this music that's been produced, and you know, maybe I'll set up a MySpace page for it or something. God, that just put me back.
I do see the news page down here, but I just have the MSPA news posts right now.
Yeah.
So those will unlock more. How many readers did he get in the previous MSPAs? Because like, isn't Homestuck the 4th or something?
I know Problem Sleuth was pretty big. I don't know, because I didn't get into Homestuck until sometime in Act 6. We'll get there eventually, and I'll say this is when I caught up to Homestuck. I actually probably got into it earlier, but my first read through, it wasn't that interesting, and it took me another time to get into it. How many readers did Problem Sleuth? There's not an immediate answer, so I don't know.
Yeah, I'm just kind of interested in like I've been on the internet. I was just on different corners of the internet at the time, because back then I was in very much like just game development circles more so than like anything else. But it's interesting just kind of seeing the evolution. Like, of course, it's not the very first thing that blows up, and you hear that with a lot of projects as well. Like, someone made a bunch of obscure stuff before they made something that kind of blew up more so.
I mean, and Problem Sleuth only ran for a year. Now I'm on Yeah. MS Paint Adventures wiki.
Yeah, which I also read was only one comic was in MS Paint. The rest of them were in like Photoshop or something.
Yeah. Yeah, that's about right.
Mm.
Yeah, actually, in the comments, Hussey makes a joke about whenever there's a command for a kid to like clean up something in the room, it's because he wants to clean up their Photoshop file. Get some of the
Yeah.
shit out of here. So I know you have the book. Did you initially, like, whenever you first tried to do a read through, did you only read it from the book or did you read it from the website as well?
Yeah, I think I read through Act because the book is Act 1 and 2. So I think I read those on in the book, and then I think I read Act 3 on the Viz or like the official site.
Yeah.
And then whenever the intermission was, I got very confused and I just kind of stopped.
Yes, that's fair. I know intermission stands hate it, but it is fair for new readers who don't know Problem Sleuth, especially, to just go, "What? Where'd the kids go? Who's this stabby man? What's with the clocks?"
Yeah.
And stop. But yeah, okay. So you have seen some of the animations before reading through Act 3.
Yeah. There was so when I was listening to when I was reading through Act 1, I turned on a YouTube playlist of songs to read Homestuck to.
Oh yeah.
And there was one song I recognized, but that was pretty much it.
Yeah.
But I don't know how I would even describe it to you.
No, I mean, and there's a lot of songs that aren't in the comic itself. They're just songs about Homestuck, inspired by Homestuck. The Bandcamp for Homestuck is pretty extensive. Lots and lots of music. It's a big, if you're into music, Homestuck is the fandom for you. It's got lots of fan songs and shit. We'll get into Broadway Carcat later, though.
What?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, any kind of first impressions about Act 1? Any particular things you enjoyed? Do you want to be nitpicky about how the
the data structures?
Yeah, the data structures work.
Yeah, well, I guess I'll just kind of talk about my experience reading Act 1 for a second time. The first time I read it, I felt very lost, and I understood things a little bit better this time, or maybe it just went by faster. I did get sidetracked a lot. Like the first 100 pages, I downloaded Pester Chump and I was like, this is a program made in Pygame and it uses an IRC server in a cute way. Kind of like MS Chat with the comics back in like the late 90s. It's like I hit the client and the like random pester button and someone popped up and I said, hi, thanks for responding to me. So it's just like, of course somebody made a Pester Chump client. And also, this is amazing. I wish we were all using Pester Chump.
Yeah.
Because I really miss the days of like AOL Instant Messenger.
Yeah, no, they were good days. I remember I really remember Pigeon. Like,
yeah.
Instead of downloading like all AOL, Yahoo, and like whatever, I just got Pigeon and I miss Pigeon.
Yeah, it's still around, but there's not a lot to connect to, and I just wish people had usernames and chatted on on instant messengers. I wish programs were just developed as desktop applications and not like Discord, where it was also probably an Electron app that was developed for the web and then created for desktop version, and then everything's one window. I don't like it.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah. And then, as I was taking notes on everything, I was like, okay, John started with a stack, Rose started with a tree structure, Dave started with a hash map structure. So I was keeping note of that in case that's relevant to their personalities? Question mark?
I mean, it kind of is, yeah.
Oh, is it? Now that I'm thinking about it, I was like, does Dave like hash? Is that why he used the hash map? Of course, he's a kid, right? Like, I don't know, but yeah.
I mean, we'll wait till you see Dave to see exactly how it ends up being relevant to his shit. But yeah, I mean, John uses the basic thing that he got and doesn't understand at all, and Rose uses something that's not very practical but pretty elegant. So,
I mean, a binary search tree is a pretty good structure if you want kind of the best of both worlds.
Yeah,
but yeah, and I was, as I was reading it, the way I have a critique on the data structure of the stack in the story.
Yeah.
So with a stack, everything is supposed to be accessed and removed from the same location, which I believe if he's like taking it out of the inventory, it comes out of the proper spot, wherever he just put it in. But if it overflows, then it comes out the back side. So if you're thinking of like everything you access is on the top, when it gets over full, it comes out the bottom, which it shouldn't do. But I guess you can just do like asterisk, like it behaves differently if you give it undefined behavior or something.
Yeah. I'm very glad that you know enough to be nitpicky about this.
Yeah. And then I another thing was so I read most of this like last week, and just in the past week I had written a hash table or hash map quiz for my own students, and I had made one of the sets of data you put in there the different Nicolas Cage movies, and then I read Homestuck and there's all these Nicolas Cage movies and data structures, and I was like, is this a coincidence or are we just both old and know about data structures?
¿Por qué no las dos?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Nick Cage remains a relevant figure, so.
Yeah, and like some of the other stuff I got sidetracked with is I drew a little kid Sona for myself.
I saw that. I'm like, man, we got them. We got them good. Just immediately download Pester Shaman, like make a kid soda.
Yeah, I wish I could have different avatars on different servers in Discord, because I have a Discord for my students, so now they just see that I mean they probably don't even know what it is, but
Yeah.
like
Yeah, unfortunately you need that the nitro to do
yeah. Back in my day, I didn't have to pay for my instant messengers.
that. Yeah.
Well, let's see. So I got off on a lot of tangents, just kind of exploring things like, oh, I wonder if, Pastor Chum exists or this or that. And I was thinking, like, is there a version of Spurb, which there is one on Steam, but I was thinking, like, maybe when AR is more of a thing, that somebody is going to implement a Spurb, like,
Yeah.
maybe that you could use through your mobile phone, or if you had Google Glass or something like that.
Yeah, I need to play around with that one on Steam a bit more. I tried it when it was like before it was on Steam, whenever it was still just being kind of passed
Mm,
around and messed with. And it was definitely buggy, but I haven't had I keep forgetting to mess around with it now that I actually was able to get it on Steam.
yeah. And then I guess at the end, once they got the alchemy stuff down, like that was confusing to me the first time I read it, but I ended up taking notes again, like in D&D, and I took notes of like, okay, the Crooksite dowel went into the alchemimeter or alchemimeter.
That's one of the
And
words that Hussey kept
yeah,
changing how they pronounced.
and then that did the laser cut, and then they got 3 perfectly generic objects. So I just like wrote down all the steps because like maybe I need this, I don't know.
Congrats. You understand more about Spurb than the rest of Homestuck.
Yeah. And then I guess another thing I noticed is just like Spurb kind of reminded me of The Sims,
Yeah.
which both in like I was thinking of the herbs, like the DS game or something, but then also just the user interface of it just looked kind of Simish to me.
Yeah, I mean, Hussey made some because I was reading the commentary along with it, and Hussey did like make some comparisons to that, like when Rose accidentally blocks the door and
Hmm.
John's just kind of flailing around in front of it because he can't get out.
Yeah.
On this read through, and I've read through the beginning of Homestuck like 1,000 billion times,
Hmm.
but I guess to me, in this read through, it felt like the ramp up from this is the normal game to oh god, you're gonna die now seemed to like just happen a lot more quickly than I remembered it happening. How did that feel to you?
Yeah, that was definitely pretty sudden. I think John had like alluded to like in a chat log saying I discovered a meteor, that's why everyone's bugging me on my birthday, and then it happens or something. But yeah, I just like I don't know what's going on with the meteor. I don't know anything. Wh-
Yeah, that's fair.
why does Spurb change the real world? But
Yeah. Strap in.
yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fair. It was just we're playing around and then oh god,
Mhm.
there's a timer for 4 minutes and 13 seconds.
Yeah. Or like just reading through a bad game facts to figure out what to do.
That's really great. I love that inclusion of the game facts. It's kind of like, you know, when you're like playing D&D or Skyrim or something and you're in a cave and like someone just
Mhm.
like is writing a journal about things that happened and then stops partway through. It's like
Yeah.
that's what Rose is experiencing. I had a couple notes before I stopped because I realized I was going at a snail's pace because of the amount of notes I was taking. So you remember how when John and Rose are first introduced, there's like someone types in a dumb name and
Yeah.
then they get mad. So the Zoo Smell name for John is based off of one of Hussey's older comics.
What is Zeus mail?
Zoo Smell. That was the name of one of his older comics, I think. But
Oh.
like the name that was initially typed in for John was Zoo Smell Poop Lord.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, just one of his older comics is a
Oh,
reference.
did he put that in? Because I figured that was like stuff that users tried to put in. Users being the people reading and then like suggesting the next thing in the comic or something.
That's a good question that I don't know the answer to. I didn't note that part down.
Yeah.
I know like their actual names were suggestions.
Mm-hmm.
Like John Egbert was the first name that was suggested. Rose, when he was looking for suggestions, he picked the second name he saw that was suggested,
Mm-hmm.
etc.
Yeah. Interesting. They could have had completely different names.
Yeah, no, it's wild how like solid these names end up being in the overarching story and how it was all just luck. All just chance. That's so much of Homestuck. It's just like, oh, I see. He was putting threads for this way back here. And then you see in the commentary, they're like, no, I mean, sure,
maybe
attribute
maybe
that to me.
maybe he's just really good at reading his old work, or sorry, their old work, and being like, oh, I put that in there. I guess I need to fix that thread.
Yeah. Basically, every poster on John's wall ends up being like relevant sometime in the comic, like some
Oh my
sort of
gosh.
foreshadowing.
Yeah. And I'm such a dope when it comes to foreshadowing, cuz like I for this one I'm like taking notes, but even then I wasn't like writing down the movie posters. Like if you were my DM and you're like, and they have a Con Air poster on the wall, I would have written it down. But yeah, usually I just kind of like through the story, like just reading it, having a good time, not thinking critically.
No, I'm the same. Like I had this problem when I was listening to the Magnus archives, because people were piecing together that plot and like making guesses about what was going to happen, and I'm like, I don't know, it's a
Yeah.
good story.
Yeah. I'm like, oh. So I also have been playing like Final Fantasy 14, and I'm not spoiling anything, but there was a place in earlier in the game, like maybe 100 hours ago in the game, and there was a guy trapped in it. And then you see the place again. I was like, huh, there's this other friend that we've made. I wonder if that guy's still in the thing. And then it turns out it was the guy. It's like,
Nice.
oh, just no critical thinking on my part. I was just like, huh, the guy must still be in the thing.
Fantastic.
So I don't know. For all of my planning in software development, I just take everything social at face value.
Yeah, I mean that's fair, and it's still a fun way to
Yeah.
experience shit. Like I definitely experienced Homestuck like that. Like I'm still putting clues together after I've read it 1,000 times.
Yeah. It makes it more fun to just not know what's happening and then have it revealed later.
Yeah. And then just like, maybe you'll pick up on something that other people didn't, even if you're not picking up on the things that everyone else did.
Mm,
And just follow those tracks.
yeah. I'll at least pick up on the data structures.
Yeah, fair enough.
Another thing I noticed was John. Okay, so he had scripts on his computer, and at least a couple times he said, like, oh, I would like to learn to program, but I'm no good at it. So then I, I took that to mean, like, oh, Hussey's no good at programming. This is their self admission. It's like, this is why they're writing a comic and not programming.
I mean, maybe. I can't confirm or deny that. There is actually a character that is more of a Hussey self-insert that actually, you know what? Nah, you kind of already see that now is one of Dave and John's conversations is
Mm.
based heavily on a conversation they actually had in real life that they just
Hmm.
copied like half of it for. And a lot of Dave's dialogue is just the way Hussey talks,
Oh,
which is really, really funny to me, considering how much of the fandom, especially the Transmask fandom, relates to Dave. It's like you all relate to Hussey deep down, and it's a cursed fact that everyone ignores.
yeah. I didn't know anything about Dave. I have seen like tweets saying like John is trans, like a trans girl, and seeing like fan art of like,
Oh, I'm gonna save that discussion for the end
okay.
and we'll have a disclaimer so anyone who wants to skip that discussion can. But yes, I remember really loving the way Act 1 ended when I first read it. Like it was just very intense way to end, like with the
Mm.
meat falling and everything and just taking a bite of the apple at the last second.
And it's cool just to see the flash animation stuff or the kind of mixed media. Because
Yeah.
I grew up on Newgrounds, so it was like
Oh,
all animation, but like using it as an accentuation is interesting.
yeah. We'll get to there was a point that Homestuck crashed Newgrounds. So I'll tell you when we get there
Okay.
because of the fucking everyone logging in to look at the flash or some shit. Yeah, we Homestuck fans destroyed the internet at least once. I just love how it goes from like boy in room to
Mm.
extremely intense life or death scenario. Oh, do you have any opinions on the Guardians we've met so far? So just dad and mom right now.
Oh,
Well, we haven't super
uh,
met mom, but
right. I mean, all I've gathered from Dad is he likes to bake. John doesn't like Betty Crocker. And I guess he's supportive of his son. He likes clowns. He gave his son a clown Harlequin. And then it sounds like Rose's mom is like low key abusive or something.
that's going to be a discussion. The existence of abuse and how abusive various characters are
Mm,
is still a big conversation in the fandom.
mm,
It's, I mean, like in an interesting way, I think. So yeah, like as we learn more about mom and the other guardians and characters, I'll be interested to hear your thoughts about that.
mm.
But also, I have to say, Rose is also just a little over dramatic about things.
Okay.
But also, who really knows?
Mm. I will
Um,
say that I did not remember Rose when I started rereading it. I remembered Glasses Girl and her face, maybe just because I'm also a glasses person.
yeah.
So I like glasses people the most.
It's like Rose doesn't have glasses. Get
Yeah,
wrecked.
it's like, oh wait, here's another person. I forgot about this one.
God, there are only two of the overall kids who don't have glasses. It's very
Mm.
funny. Yeah, fuck Rose. Don't have glasses. Be good. Rose was probably my favorite character at the beginning.
Mm.
As we get more into it, I'll ask more about your favorite characters, but right now we basically know John,
Yeah,
John's dad, and kind of Rose, and we've seen Rose's mom, sort of.
who made a mausoleum to the dead cat for spite or something.
Apparently. Or because she's also an overdramatic bitch. Who knows?
Yeah, I do
Um,
like the little animations in there. Yeah, I was just thinking back of like the John freaking out animations.
yes, John
Like I
freaking
don't
out.
know his personality, but I know he freaks out and he's very cute.
Yeah. No, it's great. I also love so there's a little animation where Rose kicks a box into a closet or something.
Oh yeah, the something she's like only for my eyes or something.
Yeah, and Hussey comments below because like the comments are meant for the book, right? And so in the
Mm.
commentary, he's like, "I don't care that you didn't get to see all the amazing like big animations I did. I'm mad that you can't see this little cute her kicking the box back."
Mm.
Which I mean, it is a cute little like just kiki kick animation.
Mm. Yeah, it definitely has a style. I like it. It also it makes me want to just work on like text adventures or like really old style games again.
Right. Yeah, you might go back and play Jailbreak.
Mm.
Because I think was it Jailbreak or Bard's Quest? One of his earlier ones was more like a choose your own adventure path, I'm pretty sure.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a while since I've gone back and played those.
I'll have to maybe browse those a little bit.
Yeah. Obvious warning, the earlier you go back into Hussey's stuff, the more like internet at that time it
Mm.
is. But you know,
Aren't we all?
aren't we all? Yeah.
Like back when I was 18, all of my friends were just a bunch of dudes who were on 4chan all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, we definitely get some of that. We already have the R slur dropped at least once
Mm-hmm.
in this act. It does eventually let up, but it takes a while.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which that's another thing about
The mods.
the mods is you can just remove them if you don't want to see that shit. Which I think is cool.
Yeah, I think that's appreciated. That makes can modernize things.
Yeah. And it's just like, especially if like certain words are like more triggering or squick to you or whatever, it's like, cool. Now I don't have to like see it like once every 100 pages or something. I can just get rid of it. But yeah, not a ton happens in the first act. It's mostly just the way Hussey described it in the commentary is the first half of Act 1 is getting used to the world of Homestuck, and the second half of Act 1 is getting used to the world of Spurb.
Mm. So sorry, I'm just trying to think ahead of like how much in this first act comes back in the future. Like, is everything relevant, or some of it just silly stuff?
Some of it's just silly. Some of it's stuff that Hussey intended on bringing back later and just didn't happen. Some of it's stuff that was not intended to come back later and did.
The three genders.
Yeah.
Is Spurb through the entire thing? Like,
Oh,
is
yeah.
that a
Spurb.
concept? Okay.
Yes. Spurb is the entirety of Homestuck, pretty much.
Okay. Is the meteor explained?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Everything is if I say everything's explained, I'll get people yelled at me.
Like the main plot stuff is
That's
ish.
everything pre-act like 6
Hmm.
is explained. I think I can say confidently, like as far as like major stuff, like meteors and shit.
So you asked me about the Guardians, and so like that makes me think like also they're gonna be a bigger deal as well, and not just like they're at home.
Well, maybe.
I don't know. Something with clowns and wizards. I don't know.
Something with clowns. The Homestuck story.
Dad will show up as a clown later, and mom will show up as a wizard.
Hmm?
You don't have to confirm or deny anything.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the great thing about Homestuck is if you say it happens, then it happens somewhere.
Eventually, given an infinite amount of time, it's
Yeah.
going to happen.
Yeah. Looking through my notes, I don't think I had anything else really relevant. I was just like jotting down.
Mm.
Like, okay, so this stuff about John, and I just love looking back to see like, when characters are first introduced, like they have like a list of like,
Yeah,
your name
things
is
they
John
liked or whatever.
and blah, blah, blah. So like hates cakes, likes terrible movies, bad at computer programming, likes paranormal lore. I don't think we ever see that one again. Like,
The
I'm just saying,
paranormal.
like, it was never like John never mentions it after that first introduction in Act 1. So
Hmm.
I don't think it's a spoiler to say that, like, I don't think it comes up again.
Hmm.
Aspiring magician and likes to play games.
Yeah. Or that reminds me of that book, the prank book that he kept using. It's like, is that relevant?
Colonel Sassacres, yeah, yeah, it's a big book.
Yeah.
Uh,
I mean, once you invent a book like that, you have to use it, right?
yeah.
Why would you not keep reusing it through the entire thing?
Yeah. Did you read like
I
the
did not.
it's fine. It's not none of it's like relevant. Like I don't think it even hints at anything ever. It's just
Mm,
funny
okay.
and kind of dumb.
Yeah. I enjoy just the the art of making the world building text for things.
Yeah, that's fair. But yeah, we'll see how often that comes up. One of the things I really like about Dad is that he leaves notes everywhere for John to just find.
Hmm.
And it's like, so proud of you, son.
Yeah.
Here's a present. It's interesting. And it's also interesting because like even leaving those notes is apparently like way more dialogue than like Problem Sleuth or anything before had.
Hmm.
Like no one talks, and like people talking in Homestuck was a big deal.
That's weird.
Yeah, right. Do you have the setting on where all the chats are auto expanded?
No, I think I've been having to click on the log to see the chats.
So apparently, I know this was a problem like early on in Homestuck. I don't know if people still have this problem, but people have gone through reading Homestuck and not clicking to open the logs,
Oh no.
and like taking a while to realize that that is a thing they're supposed to do.
Yeah. No, I know about the logs because at least like, reading the book version, those were visible.
Yeah, but yeah, I guess it must just be especially like there was no dialogue before, so I don't know. Like just experiencing a Homestuck only through the pictures. Anything else you wanted to say about? Oh, one question. Did you end when the curtains close? Is that like where it says end of Act 1 at the top and the curtains close?
Yeah, because I think I remember like the years in the future. I don't know if that's when the mummy guy comes in,
The mummy guy.
the bandage guy. But yeah, I stopped at the curtains part.
Okay, cool. I wasn't sure because there's only, I think it's only just that page and then like a link to a thing and then it starts on Act 2. But yeah, so I mean, not that it's a whole lot to cover, but we can talk about that in the next episode. Sorry, did you say you had something else you wanted to talk about for Act 1?
Oh, no, I think that's most of what I was kind of observing and thinking about while going through Act 1.
Yeah, for sure. And we can always come back to shit later
Mhm.
as you remember stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So my current plan is to have this come out every 2 weeks. We'll see how that happens. And don't know actually when this is going to be published. Right now we're recording it and it's November, but I'm giving us plenty of time to have a backlog. So
Yeah.
I think the latest I have it scheduled to start is January.
Okay.
So hi, if it's January, it's my birthday month. Give me money.
Yay.
And links for stuff will be in the show notes.
Yes, you can find my if you want my data structures textbook that I wrote, you can send me a message and I'll send it to you.
Fantastic. That's fantastic. Hey everyone, you're obligated.
I also have my core C++ programming textbook I wrote. No, none of it's for sale. It's all free. That's why I made it.
Fantastic. Yeah, no, that's incredibly cool shit. And you can find everything livelaughstuck.com is, Live Laugh Stuck Twitter, all that shit. And I am wrapping up weirdly because it's time for the disclaimer.
Oh.
Disclaimer, June discourse mention. If you know me, you know stuff. I'm not going to try to get too much into the stuff, but I am giving you a disclaimer.
I'm very confused.
It's fine. We're mentioning June.
And just like the whole awkward silence when I brought that up.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Like, I don't know. Is this bad?
It's not. Okay. So, sorry, I'm trying to think of where to start the explanation. So,
I mean, I just figured it was a headcanon for people.
Oh god, it's so much more than that. Like it is that and it's not that. So, Dami gets to cut so many awkward pauses out. I'm so sorry. In 2019, Homestuck Twitter fandom was something else. I'm going to probably do episodes just about that. I don't know if it's going to be on this podcast feed or if I'm going to make another one. I have another podcast feed ready to go that I don't have any episodes for yet called Fandom Bitch Fest. Because sorry, Moosey, you get into this a little bit. So as my regular listeners may know, by regular I mean I stopped producing episodes for like 2 years. But towards the end, before my big hiatus, I started getting really bitter and angry, and so I stopped.
Oh.
Because people like this being a positive space, and I was not able to maintain that. Which is why I'm not sure if I want to have, like, even if I keep these more academic-like, if I want to have it on this podcast feed. I'm still debating. That's why we're having a discourse section at the end that people can skip if they don't want to listen to it. But Homestuck Fandom 2019 was just like that. It was terrible. Even if you were on the good side, it was terrible. And what produced out of that was a headcanon for trans femme John Egbert. And everyone came up with the name June. That was decided upon. I'm not saying that trans femme John headcanons never existed before now. Obviously, trans headcanons of all sorts have existed for all characters forever. We're a queer fandom. We say, I like this character, so that character's me now. Always been a thing. But this got really big after a thing I'm not going to explain. See, this is why I had to like, no, I'm not going to explain that part of the history. That's not relevant. That would be a whole other thing. It got really big. It got to the point that if you didn't like the trans femme headcanon, you were considered a trans misogynist. It got to the point that I knew someone whose name was John, and he changed his name because being named after John Egbert was not a good look.
What?
It was bad. it was a bad fandom.
Mm-hmm.
If you were in any of the bigger circles, it was bad.
Mm-hmm.
And then Hussey did this weird ARG thing where he like dropped a Toblerone in a random ass location, and someone found it and said, "Hey, I got the Toblerone. Since I found the Toblerone first, make June Egbert canon." And Hussey was like, "It is done."
It's just like, I like that the history is there was a Toblerone.
There was a Toblerone in the middle of the California desert. I think it was California. Yes. Well, actually, there was more than one Toblerone, but the first person who found it got their wish granted. It was a stash of Toblerones.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, that Toblerone on that burned up page from Game Bro or whatever
Yeah.
didn't become relevant until 2019. So that happened. And as any like if you are taking that in the best faith, knowing who Hussey is and knowing what Homestuck is, Hussey is the person who has said everything's canon. All ships are canon, yes, even the ones you don't like. All like Hussey has said some great and some terrible things. Hussey is not a pure person. Hussey has
Nope.
said because like the kids, people look at the kids and like they're like, obviously Hussey was white, presumably cishet dude at the time in 2009. The kids were white
Mm-hmm.
in his head at the time. Obviously, people have their own headcanons, and Hussey ended up saying like people end up asking about race because it's never made explicit because they're just black and white
Yeah.
characters.
Yeah.
And Hussey said the characters are aracial. They can be whatever race you want them to be except black.
What?
Because that was Hussey at the
Whew.
time.
Huh.
Hussey is not
Weird.
a non-problematic person.
Yeah.
They did edgy shit. They said edgy shit. Later on,
Well, that was very early internet as well. That
exactly. Homestuck is very much early internet, and people forget that. Hussey making something canon is nothing. It means nothing because everything's canon. But
Mm.
because of the situation of the internet, of the Homestuck fandom on Twitter in those circles, if you mention the name John Egbert, you were a transmisogynist. Up
Oh.
until like mid to late 2020, maybe into 2021. I forget when things happened. Definitely into 2020. John Egbert Discord servers were getting raided for being transmisogynist.
This is recent history.
Even today, like people are still afraid to write like tag things on Tumblr or like elsewhere as John Egbert. Like it's gotten a little better, and I've gotten better at blocking a lot of people. But
Mm-hmm.
this is why like seeing transfemme John out in the open is like, I wish that was just a nice headcanon instead of like
Yeah.
people were literally afraid for at least a year to mention John Egbert existing. It was a time. And this, you get to find this out live on the podcast. I
Mm-hmm.
am reminding everyone out there because I'm never letting anyone forget it. I was personally affected by this
Oh.
because I had said on Twitter, because I was kind of in those big Twitter circles. I hate it, shouldn't have been, but I got the notice because I had said how I didn't like this Toblerone canon thing, and I had some criticisms of it, and how people only like the Toblerone canon thing because they got the canon they wanted. And
Mm-hmm.
I was invited on a very popular podcast that was not technically official, but was basically official, Homestuck podcast. And I was ridiculed for my ideas, even as I tried to like, fight, flight, or fawn. I tried to fawn my way out of that shit. And it was terrible and awkward. And people who
Yeah.
previously loved the person who hosted it, some of them were like, that was actually not great.
Yeah.
Yes. So the subject of transfemme John is a bit of a thing for me.
Okay. I thought it was just a nice little headcanon.
I wish it was, because transfemme John would actually be a hilarious concept to like, I mean hilarious in a bad way, but like we need more dumbass girls, and John's a dumbass.
Yeah.
That's what I mean by hilarious. But anyway, I'm sorry. I am doing my best not to drag you into discourse stuff, but unfortunately it's Homestuck, and sometimes it happens.
Well, I appreciate the cultural context because I'm also interested in just like how Homestuck has affected pop culture or the internet.
Oh,
Even
absolutely.
for as siloed it feels, like I don't hear people on the street just being like John Egbert, ha ha ha.
No.
Like, but and then I don't even see that many people online necessarily mention it. But then it's still there, like a very big thing that happened, you know?
Yeah, no, there's definitely a lot, and I'll try to bring up as much as I can. I wasn't around during the beginning of the fandom, so I know there's a lot there I'm
Mm,
missing out on, that I'm gonna try to bring up as I get informed about it. There is, if you want a big, deep research into this stuff, there is another podcast. I haven't listened to it yet, but my roommate Dami is listening to it, and I've seen other people talk about it as well. Homestuck Made This World.
mhm,
Homestuck Made This World is a podcast that is also doing a read through. Except it's by like people who like do research and shit and like literature shit, I think. Anyway,
mm,
uh they have more access to the culture context of the time because it's
mhm.
gonna get a lot more relevant. Like
Yeah,
initially, like these four kids are like stereotypes of four internet kids, right?
yeah.
But I'll try to bring up what I remember and what I learn. But yeah, there's definitely, it's such a quintessential 2009, like late 2000s, early 2010s webcomic, and it's great
Yeah.
and terrible.
Also, we're old.
Also, we're old. You're old. You're older than me. Ha 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 ha.
I just like I think about the 2000s way more than I should.
Yeah, I mean that's fair.
But also just because like I'm a there as a technologist, I'm a very firm believer in old internet was better internet before like Facebook and everything came around.
Back when you just uploaded music on MySpace.
Yeah, you had different forums with different interests. You weren't just tweeting into a void.
Yeah.
There's more customization on like Neopets and MySpace. And, you know, I mean, there were problems certainly, but it growing up as a kid, just as an aside, like the internet felt like this explore, like a fancy, cool place to explore a whole world. And now it's just like, oh, I'm on the internet.
Yeah. Back in my day,
Yeah.
Elon Musk wouldn't have been able to buy MySpace.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I get that. I get that though. Some things are better. A lot of things are worse.
Yeah.
But yeah, cool. Thanks for sticking with me through my discourse aside.
Sure.
I hope they won't come up
I,
too more often.
yeah. And like I don't know when would be a good time to discuss it, but I'm also curious about the games. But I also know those are relatively more recent, and I figure that might be better to
Oh,
cover later.
yeah. No, those are definitely better to cover later.
Yeah.
I will think about a good time to cover them.
Hmm.
Friend Sim can probably be covered after we start getting into Act 5 and meet the trolls and Troll Society.
Hmm.
Hive Swap actually has references to some characters you'll meet later.
Okay.
So, but yeah, no, definitely we can talk about those. And there's definitely some discourse on the creation of those games, which,
Yeah.
you know what? I have someone I might invite on to talk about that if you're interested in
Sure.
being on that sort of episode to talk about like the creation of these games and the shit that went behind them, because I'm
Hmm.
actually at least acquaintances. I don't know. Geo, if you listen to this, are we friends, Geo? I don't know. We might be friends. Geo's also like a big person behind the app that we're using.
Oh, cool.
But at least acquaintances with
Hmm.
someone who did some huge deep dives into the Kickstarter and everything behind HiveSwap. So
Hmm.
also we might talk about it because there's been some hints about Act 3, HiveSwap Act 3 being
Hmm.
dropped. I don't they're very bad at communication, which we'll get into in the discourse thing.
I have heard about the bad communication
Oh,
with
did you
the
watch
hive.
Sarah
With the
Z's video?
I did watch that. I don't remember a whole lot, but yeah, I have heard like just like bad communication.
Yeah. So anyway, there was some rumors, or there was some information about Act 3 dropped at a fan made online convention panel that still hasn't made it to the Kickstarter page. So, but yeah, this is, by the way, no shade to the people who did the panel. I'm glad you guys are having fun. This is no shade to just, this is not, I'm not directly attacking anyone working on the game. Like if you're just like making some assets, doing some cool stuff, and you got permission to release shit, cool. Love you.
Mm.
Hate the people in charge of your communication. Hire someone from PR. Anyway, but yeah, so if more news of that comes out, or like Act
Mhm.
3 comes out, I might decide then, depending on when that is,
Yeah.
if we want to do like a playthrough. Because, like,
Yeah.
yeah, again, like the characters mentioned in there aren't super, super relevant. Really, it's just understanding troll society before you get thrown in, which, like,
Mhm.
Jacksepticeye has played it without having read Homestuck, has played Act 1 at least without having read Homestuck.
Mm.
So it's not like inscrutable or anything.
Okay.
So, you know what? I'll think on this. I'll talk to some other people who have better brains than me sometimes, and we'll come back, because yeah, definitely the games. I'm really interested to hear your thoughts about, you know, the game.
Yeah. And always, I appreciate you being my guide through all of this. And it's just nice to be able to not be kind of reading in a void and being like, I have no context for anything.
Absolutely, because like honestly, this is why I want to make episodes about the shit that went down in 2019, 2020, because like I don't think you can properly understand like the games that came out later, like Pester Quest. You can't understand Pester Quest the way it should be understood, the way I think it should be understood, without understanding what fandom was like and what,
Mm,
what Pumpkin was like in 2019, you know?
mm,
And there's definitely going to be parts of Homestuck that it's like having that context, while not essential, will definitely influence your understanding of things,
mhm.
which I'm very excited about. That's going to be ages from now, but I'm hyped for it.
Cool.
But yeah, that was a lot of information. But yeah, we already did kind of the outro. Here's another outro. Live Laugh Stuck. Find me on Kofi, Jax Yax. Give me money. Because then I can
Yes.
start like paying people. Because right now the money is going to hosting
Yeah.
and doesn't even cover all of that, because it's between this and Fade Gamer Bro. Not that it's expensive. I'm making it sound like I'm shelling out a shit ton of money. Okay, goodbye.
Bye.